Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. COVID-19 cases still on the increase in Trinidad and Tobago. This story takes the lead in a 1080th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 31st March 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. COVID-19 cases are still on the increase in Trinidad and Tobago. Renessa Cutting of TV6 News reports that over the last 48 hours, cases have been recorded. Thankfully, Trinidad and Tobago is still on track to receive its first shipment of vaccines on Tuesday next.
Steady increase in COVID cases continues to be recorded. A steady increase in COVID cases continues to be recorded, bringing our number of active cases to 240 as at Monday morning.
And that rolling 7-day average has gone from a low of 3 to its current position of 17.
The COVID spread has had an immediate impact on hospital admissions, with occupancy rates more than doubling.
Over the past 10 to 12 weeks, the parallel healthcare system, in terms of hospital occupancies, has been at a rate of about 2 to 3%. However, as of today, that occupancy percentage has increased to 7%.
And the virus has once again found its way behind prison walls. On Saturday, it was confirmed that an inmate at the maximum security prison had contracted the virus.
Of course, that individual having been identified or confirmed, you will expect and you will note that additional testing, contact tracing, etc. will be carried out, and that the number from the prison system may be updated. But at this point in time, just the one that would have been identified is the only one that currently exists within that system.
The ministry notes that the spike in cases comes after the last relaxation of measures, allowing for contact sports and related activities. But at this time, data does not explicitly identify this as the cause for the spread.
And what we noticed is that the beginning of that increase coincided with the 2-week period that we normally look at for having elapsed after the change in those regulations. So while we're not saying that it's directly related to that, we do note that the changes in behavior that are associated with gathering to watch sports, gathering after you've played the sport, etc., those things could drive the increasing spread. And
this development comes as TNT is anticipating the arrival of its first batch of just over 33,000 vaccines through the COVAX facility, scheduled for March 30th.
As at this moment, we haven't had any change in the scheduled arrival. So while I will not say 100%, we have not been advised of any changes to the schedule at this point in time. However, I can assure you that the logistics for receipt, storage, distribution are all in place, and that we are ready to receive and to roll once the vaccines land.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
As one UNC senator calls for the Attorney General to be fired for not wearing his mask, the Attorney General says while no laws have been breached, he apologizes and commits to doing better. Urvashi Durari Rupnarayan of TV6 News has that story.
The Attorney General makes what many consider an unorthodox appearance at an Instagram game show hosted by soca heavyweight Voice, titled Vibes with Voicey. But since Thursday's show, the AG has probably been able to do anything but vibes. That's because there's been a steady stream of criticism of the man who championed for the first time ever mask-wearing laws in TNT, and the man who oversees continually evolving public health regulations to deal with situations conducive to the spread of COVID-19. Even the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, was asked for his take on what has become public discussion.
My comment on that is that that is disappointing because, as I said earlier on today, I expect every person in a leadership position in this country to demonstrate that leadership wherever you are, whenever you're out.
The UNC, on the other hand, is prepared to get as much out of the blunder as possible, starting with Faris Al-Rawi's job.
No, Mr. Prime Minister, you are not supposed to be disappointed. Only you are to fire this lawless Attorney General.
Then came the call on the Commissioner of Police.
Here is the evidence. Do your duty. Arrest the Attorney General. He has broken the law.
Mask wearing and proper wearing of masks has long been a concern, and during the height of TNT's 2020 election campaign, party officials and supporters were seen in breach of what was being advised. Some even went on to contract the virus. But mask wearing only became legally enforceable on August 31st.
This is Al-Wari, lawmaker in the day and lawbreaker in the night.
So what is the man at the center of this contentious issue saying? When contacted by TV6, the AG says he notes the comments surrounding the charity event held in a private residence with less than 10 people in the room. He says in a time of COVID fatigue, his participation was intended to bring some relief through charity and lightheartedness. However, AG Al-Rawi says, quote, even though participants took temperatures and sanitized, upon reflection, it would certainly have been more prudent to wear masks in certain of the settings so as to encourage the audience that tuned in to keep the fight against COVID alive whilst they had a proper laugh at people like me who are usually confined to a suit and tie in serious, often seen as boring talk, end quote. In signaling his full support of the PM's reflection, the AG says going forward, quote, I am renewed in giving my personal redoubled commitment to do better by being seen to adopt best practices, end quote. On our question as to whether the public deserves an apology, the AG writes, quote, even though no law was broken, I should have done better and unreservedly apologize, end quote. Urvashi Tiwari Rupnarine, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. A growing dome in St. Vincent has sent emergency officials in St. Lucia into overdrive in preparation for a likely eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. Solange Alfred of HTS News Force reports.
The alert level remains at orange for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is dealing with an effusive volcanic eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. The high hazard zone warning has been in effect from December 2020, when the dome was discovered. National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, closely monitored the hazard. Following small-frequency volcano-tectonic earthquakes in March 2021, Director of NEMO in St. Lucia, Doreen Gustav, says the La Soufrière volcano is likely to erupt.
Due to an increase in seismic activity in the past week at the St. Vincent La Soufrière volcano, St. Lucia was contacted by the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Agency, which is CDEMA, to determine how prepared we are in the event of an eruption. And based on the information, an eruption is imminent, but we can't tell exactly when it will happen.
In preparation for any eventuality, on Saturday, March 27th, NEMO called an emergency meeting with all stakeholders to update and plan its response to a volcanic hazard. According to Deputy Director NEMO, Maria Medad, communities in the south of St. Lucia have already been identified if an evacuation is deemed necessary.
From Dennery, as far as Soufrière. And the reason for looking at these is that we're not sure in terms of wind direction, etc., what is going to happen and how these communities will be affected.
Regarding the risk of tsunami, Medad says tidal waves associated with volcanic eruptions are rare. She also addressed volcanic ash that could affect St. Lucia's air quality and notes the hazard depends on the intensity of the eruption. St. Lucia has made known its intention to step up and assist St. Vincent in the event of a mass evacuation of Vincentians. Medad says shelters in the north of St. Lucia have already been identified for evacuees.
The shelters that they would be accessing would be treated as quarantine shelters. So they would not be able to go out and mingle with the locals on arrival. They will do the necessary quarantine period. The screening will be done with them, so that the Ministry of Health is aware of the health conditions.
The La Soufrière volcano violently erupted in 1979. Director of NEMO says all agencies involved in the response regionally and in St. Lucia are girding for the worst-case scenario.
All of the agencies basically have put their plans together, and what they need to do is to tighten this plan. I think we're at the final stage of that in order for us to feed into our national plan for response to that hazard.
NEMO plans to roll out an aggressive sensitization drive in the coming weeks to keep the public informed and educated in the event of a disruptive explosion of La Soufrière in St. Vincent. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
Meantime, from April this year, Government of Barbados will be looking to phase out the importation of gasoline and diesel vehicles. Minister of Energy Kerry Simmons, speaking after a 40th anniversary service for the National Petroleum Corporation, said it was part of the efforts to eliminate dependence on fossil fuels by 2030. He added government was leading by example, with a fuel import bill ranging from $450 million to $800 million a year.
As part of the move towards taking the island away from its dependence on fossil fuels, we're going to be trying to set an example at government level by wherever it is possible, sourcing new vehicles which will be electric or hybrid. And that will be as of the 1st of April this year. So that going forward, and we do accept that at this stage it is not possible to have every type of vehicle replicated in electric or hybrid type models, but wherever it is possible, government will be looking at doing that in the hope of the private sector following pattern. Part of the challenges we have is that the planning windows in international marketplaces are very short, and so therefore people make a vehicle with a view to 5 years down the road, the technology changing, so that there are still not electric vehicles in every type of model to replace all that will be in government's fleets.
Last year was great. This year will be better. Data, internet, drinks, groceries, fuel, cooking gas, electricity, savings account, property or vehicle insurance, Hubbard's, promotion coming soon.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.